as you guys know, we don't have an opponent opening weekend as of right now. So as you can imagine, I may peek down at my cell phone occasionally because we're trying to get that done and line that up as fast as we can. But we're ready to rock and roll. Our guys are working hard and we're ready to play.
Mike, go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. Mike Toper with Spectrum News. Good to see you. Obviously, this pandemic aside, because nothing's normal, but Coach Fox isn't here. But other than that, you've been in Chapel Hill so long. I mean, it can't seem like it's that odd being a first-year head coach. How has the transition been and leading up to this new season and your first year, like I said, as the head man?
You know, Mike, honestly, the only odd thing has been COVID. Just dealing with all the extra things that we have to take care of and the players have to do, and the testing protocols, the reality that something like this can happen. You know, you're all ready and you've been working on Kentucky and all of a sudden they call and they can't come. But you're right. I've been here a long time and, you know, it really hasn't been that much different except for managing those type of things that a head coach would have to manage. And, you know, being on your cell phone all day yesterday when we're in the middle of practice, which I usually don't take my cell phone out on the field, trying to find an opponent for opening weekend. But the transition has been great, and that's credit to our players. Our players have been phenomenal the whole fall. We got like 27 scrimmages in, and they've been great in the preseason. So for me, I'm just ready to watch them play because they haven't played in so long.
Greg, go ahead.
Scott, Greg Barnes in South Carolina. Along those lines, with the season being preempted last year due to COVID, and the guys have not been able to play in an actual game in so long, as you mentioned, what was the challenge for the team, dating back to the spring and absorbing that loss of not being able to complete that season, and then trying to get the guys emotionally ready for another season back in the fall?
You know, Greg, that's a great question. And, you know, we talk about all the time, the season ended so fast that we didn't even get together. We thought our guys were going to go home for a couple of days. We'd have them back here. The season would start back. They had all left. And because of COVID and everything going on, we never even had an end of the year, quote, team meeting. So the last day that group, the 20 team was together, was on the field for practice. I believe it was a Thursday or Wednesday. We were getting ready to play Duke that weekend. So the challenge of just the emotional side of it for all these kids, doing something that they're so used to doing every single day, and then adding on not being able to go play summer ball for the most part. Some kids were able to down in Florida. I think even before Coach retired was just to constantly stay in touch with our guys, encourage them. He'd say, hey, I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're going to get through it. We're going to play next year. It's going to be different, but, you know, we're going to get you back here in the fall. And I tell you, the fact that COVID did hit, we were able to have the first fall like this we've ever had, where we couldn't recruit off campus. We couldn't have kids visit on campus. So we literally could pour in every ounce of energy we had to our team, which usually we're pulled away a lot, official visits, this and that. So, you know, me personally, I just tried to find as much positive as we could out of it during a very difficult time, and just, you know, make sure our guys got on the field. That was our whole goal, because we wanted them to enjoy it. It was kind of their sanctuary with everything going on. And we've been saying that the whole time, like, hey, don't forget last year, and let's don't lose a day, and let's enjoy being on the field every day.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Scott, thanks for taking the time this morning. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what your emotions are going into this season. Just, you know, Mike touched on it, everything being weird, Coach Fox not being here. There's just a lot different for your first season as a head coach.
My emotions really aren't any different. I mean, Bryant Gaines is here, Jesse Wiersbicki, and Jason Howell. So I have 3 assistant coaches that, you know, they've been coaching a while, but they played here. They know the ins and outs. They know me. I would say the most emotional side will probably be when the first pitch is thrown, when it really hits me that I'm the head coach, because I still don't think at times it has. And I'm sure it will. And that'll be a very humbling, humble reminder how lucky I am. And, the opportunity doesn't come to many people to be a head coach at a place like this. So, but emotionally, I feel great. I just, same thing I've always done, just ready to compete in games.
Jared?
Hey, Scott, Jared Fialco with WRAL TV. You spent more than 2 decades alongside Mike. I'm wondering what the biggest lesson you learned from his was, and that doesn't necessarily have to pertain to balls and strikes, hit and runs. The biggest thing you learned from Mike during your all's extended time together.
Yeah, Lord. I don't know if it's just one thing, but I would say if there was one thing, because I played for Coach too, was the blueprint of how to run a program or organization in general. Just the organizational skills, the communication skills, the discipline for our players, the care for our players, the importance of, having a practice plan that is by the minute, by the hour. And then, the last thing would just be the good old fashioned blue collar hard work where he had from 16 years at North Carolina Wesleyan where I played. And also not treating any player different. Coach was really good about that. He played JV basketball here, and he kind of modeled everything he did after Dean Smith. And he felt like Coach Smith treated every player the same, even, the kid that was going to catch in the bullpen most of the time. So I'd say the main 2 things from Coach Fox would be just how to run an overall organization, and then making sure you don't treat anybody different. As a matter of fact, Coach played harder on the better players than he was on the ones that weren't playing. And Danny and Austin can attest to that.
Thank you, Scott. Good to see you.
You too.
Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Joe Mazer from over at ABC 11. I'm just wondering, obviously you're already getting your first taste of how disruptive COVID can be to your season here. Have you talked to maybe Coach Williams or anybody who's already gone through this and, what it's going to be like to navigate just trying to get some games in?
Yeah, absolutely. The week I got the job, I actually met with Coach Williams in his office, and then I met with Coach Brown in his office. So Coach Gaines, who went here, graduated here, he always is like, man, has it hit you that you sat down with Roy Williams and Mac Brown? But they both valuable advice, because they have both done a really good job for the most part of being able to manage this, and they've been through some ups and downs with it. But I have talked to them. I've talked to their assistant coaches, and especially Coach Brown, because they have high numbers, or we have high numbers. They have 80 plus, but we have 40 plus. So just how they managed it when they traveled, how they handled their meals. What was it like riding on a bus, not being able to take your mask off or eat and all that stuff that you're used to doing? So I've definitely relied on them and a lot of other coaches here, because that's the neat thing about UNC is, I'm looking right over here at our field hockey stadium. You can get some pretty good advice from over there as well.
And in terms of your new position, what do you think is the biggest difference for you being a head coach versus, having your fingerprints all over the program previously anyway?
I think the biggest difference is this, all the stuff that's not on the field related. I picked up on that really quick, I was a big to-do list guy, and Coach Williams said, you can throw that out. Instead of writing 20 things, you can write 2, because you're going to get interrupted. And he's dead on. And, it's just like yesterday. Normally, I wouldn't have my phone in my pocket. I would be coaching like crazy. And yesterday, I had to rely on the coaches to run most of the practice, because I'm scrambling trying to find an opponent, get in here for opening weekend. But really, that's the main thing. I've been lucky. Coach prepared me well from the standpoint of, I've been a pitching coach and also have run the offense, so that's helped.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Caroline, go ahead.
Oh, hi. This is Caroline from the Daily Tar Heel. Coach, what do you think will be your biggest games and series of this season, and how will the team practice and prepare for tough competition?
I think I'm sure y'all have all looked at our schedule, and I would argue it's probably one of the top 5 hardest in the country. Now, obviously, we had an SEC team, and they're no longer on there, but we play 12 ACC weekends, and every midweek team we play, except for one, I think, has been in a regional in the last 3 years. So there's not going to be any let up. And, how you prepare is the old Nick Saban motto is what we use. We just try to prepare the same every single day. And obviously you look at the schedule, and of course you see East Carolina 2 times on there. You see NC State at home, you see Duke at home, you see Miami at home, and you think, man, what a great year for all these home games. We need to figure out a way to get some fans in here. But I think they're all really, really tough games. And after not playing a year, I think our guys will almost treat every game like it's ECU or NC State.
Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Weir from UNC Sports Extra. Coach, you currently have 29 players, and I could be wrong. I had to do a rough calculation. You currently have 29 players that were on your roster last year. That's 10 more than came back last year, than the year before, excuse me. How will the continuity of this team affect your squad?
Those questions will probably, be better directed towards our 2 players on here, because players, no matter what, coaches, they coach, but the players are the ones that do it, and they're the ones that really ultimately decide how the chemistry is. You can't make it as a coach. We do have more players than we've ever had, but we also returned a lot of guys that have been here a while, and that helped get we had a really talented freshman class show up on campus. Some of that was because of COVID and the draft only being 5 rounds. And, with guys like Austin and Danny and Lancelotti and, just many more, and Dallas Tesser, that's really helped from the coaching standpoint. I feel like it's made my job a lot easier because they take care of the business in the locker room.
Awesome. Gregory Hall?
Hey, Scott, Gregory Hall with Inside Carolina. We talked in the fall about your 2 grad transfers, Max Triani and Brett Centracchio. And I was just wondering how their development has continued as they mesh with the team and get used to being in Chapel Hill with your guys.
We hit home runs on both of them. Phenomenal kids. Really don't have to say much to them. They run their own engine. They're older. They're always on time. They have a lot of flexibility because their class schedule. Coach, a lot of the grad stuff doesn't have anything on Friday. There are different types of players. Brett was a middle of the order first baseman type guy for Davison. So he's played. He was on that team, that infamous team to me that beat us in 17. So I always bust his chops about that. But he's got a lot of experience, and that's going to help us. And Max was at a D2 school, so as soon as he walks in here, his eyes get really big because he's just so appreciative of everything that we have and that we get. But he had an injury in the fall of his hamstring. He's coming back. He's starting to look like the Max Troiani we thought that he could be. So that both of them are going to have huge impacts for us.
Great,
Kyle,
thank you.
go ahead.
Danny, Austin, Coach, how you guys doing? I actually have a question for each of you. I'll start with you, Coach. You mentioned it a little bit. There's just 5 rounds for the draft this year. So you actually brought in some kids that typically you wouldn't get. They'd go to the draft. How has that increased the competition with the expanded roster as well?
It's been awesome. I always remember Roy Williams' press conference the year. I don't know what year it was. They asked him what he's going to do with all these good players. And he said, it's a lot better problem to have than not having enough. And the depth just instantly, we didn't have much depth last year, especially on the infield. And it was just clear right away that, and these guys can talk more to it because the players recognize it. Some of these young guys had a chance to definitely help us on the mound, but also positionally. The draft definitely made a difference. We had kids, we have 2 kids from Minnesota. They didn't even play a high school game. So I'm thankful they didn't play a high school game because they probably wouldn't be here.
Danny, Austin, if you guys have anything to add on that, that'd be great. But my questions for you guys is, with the season ending the way that it did, how did you stay sharp in the off season, not being able to play the summer, not being able to face live pitching? For you, Danny, and Austin, you gear up and you were just starting to get towards that peak mid-season. And then all of a sudden it's just the rug is taken out from under you.
Yeah, well, I'd say I got pretty lucky over the quarantine. My buddy had like a makeshift gym in his garage that I was able to use. Obviously, cages available outdoors. So I went with my dad a lot, and then through some people that I know, we had some live ABs set up once a week. So I ended up getting like 70 at bats, so it was good, and I got some reps in against some big leaguers and some pretty good names. So did what we could, but happy to be back now, ready to get going.
Yeah, my situation was kind of similar to Danny's. Is went back home, just used buddies like makeshift gyms they had, and threw with guys who also had to come back home from college, whether it be mostly just Catawba College, which was right around us. So we used their field if they let us. We'd throw out there some and just use whatever we could find.
Awesome. Thank you. RL.
Hey, Coach Forbes, this is Ariel Bynum with Tar Heel Tribune. What are your expectations for this season? I know in the preseason poll you were picked 5th in the Coastal. What does the team have to do to prove them wrong and contend in the ACC?
Sorry, I was on mute. Preseason rankings, we've been in some. Heck, in 13 we were number 1 to begin the season, and then in 2011 we weren't even preseason ranked. We won 51 games. So, you kind of know as a coach and as a team, you have an idea of what you think you might have. I think that's one thing we're looking forward to this year, is just saying, okay, well, not many people think we're very good. So we'll just have to see if we can prove them wrong from game 1 to finish. But my expectations don't change. I mean, our expectations at UNC are always the same, no matter what the preseason rankings are. Our expectations are to make it to the College World Series and try to win it.
What are the strengths of this year's team that maybe people don't know about?
I would say number 1 would be the improvement of our pitching staff, top to bottom, and we added 3 freshmen, but we also returned every pitcher on our staff from last year. And obviously people saw the games last year, but they haven't seen the development of those players in that span of time. So I'm really excited about that. Some guys that literally haven't pitched much at all, that have a chance to have some breakout ability for us. And then positionally, the strength is our depth. We're really deep behind the plate. We're deep on the infield and the outfield just because of the recruiting class. And that allows us to mix and match, hopefully, like we did in 2018, which was one of our strengths, with matching up with right-handed pitchers, left-handed pitchers. So we feel good about that, have some speed throughout the lineup. I would say the overall 2 things are an improvement of our pitching staff and the depth of our position players.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll go back to Caroline.
Hi. Okay, I have questions for Austin and Danny. So Austin, what do you intend to improve and change on your pitching game from last season? And what worked for you last season that you're going to continue this season?
Yeah, I think this year what I'm going to look to improve is, since I'll be in the starter role, obviously I'm going to try and just throw more strikes and have quicker innings instead of coming out of the bullpen. You're more trying to get strikeouts because there's a guy on base. So this year I'm just going to try and keep the pitch count low so I can go deeper into games. And what was your other question? Sorry.
And what worked for you last season that you're going to continue this season?
I think last year my fastball actually was like one of my better pitches. So, I mean, I'm just going to keep building off that, and then hopefully my off speed will work well.
Okay, thank you. And Danny, as shortstop, what are your goals for playing the infield this season with your teammates?
I'd say my goal is just to be, that rocket short, make every play. Just try to show the younger guys that are going to be playing the infield, how to go about their business, and solidify the defense, I guess.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Gregory Hall.
Danny, I was curious what big leaguers you hit off of.
I hit off of Rick Porcello, Dallin Betances, Familia, and then a Yankee guy. I can't think of his name right now, but
I met guys.
What's that?
I said all my Mets guys.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
How was that experience? Is it something you've done before, and how'd you do?
No, I hadn't done that before. Obviously it's pretty interesting situation with the COVID and stuff, but I learned a lot. I did well. Ended up getting a few hits, which was kind of cool. But I kind of just learned that it's still a guy up there just throwing a baseball, still just trying to hit the baseball. Nothing really changes, but obviously they're just a little better. So that was pretty much it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Brian?
Hey, this is a question for both Danny and Austin. But, we asked Coach Forbes this but from a player's perspective, he's not a new face, but he's a new head coach. And just what's it been like going into this year without Coach Fox manning things for the team?
For me, I don't really think it's changed that much. Obviously we miss Coach Fox, but Coach Forbes has been here, like you said. So I feel like practices are pretty similar to how Coach Fox ran them. And it's just been pretty similar so far.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing really changes. Obviously we love Coach Fox. We miss Coach Fox, and we've seen him around the stadium a little bit, but nothing really changes. We have, still the same goals in mind, and Coach Forbes has been here for like as long as I've been alive. So, he knows how things how things are supposed to go, and so yeah, nothing changes.
Cool, thanks.
They might have answered that different if I wasn't on here.
We'll go back to Kyle.
Coach, with the high schoolers that are coming in, not being able to play the game at all last year in high school, it's always tough to make that transition to college. How much tougher is it going to be for them? Have you had to do things to maybe handle it a little differently than you normally do with them?
I think it's been easier because of the online classes. I think our guys have been they're definitely getting more sleep, because if they have an 8:00 class, they're probably getting up at 7:55. But it hasn't been as hard as you would think to manage. Besides, now we're testing twice a week, and you got to deal with that, and that takes some time. But I feel like we've almost had a little bit more time baseball wise because of everything being online.
Brian?
Sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand. I don't know.
All good. Gregory Hall?
Austin and Danny, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Max and Brett and kind of how they've molded into Tar Heels since they've been here.
Yeah, well, me and Dan played with Triani up in Orleans, so we had known him before coming in, and Coach Forbes had asked us about him. So we knew he was a great kid, good ball player. And then Brett, once we met him on campus, he's a good dude. We all bonded pretty quickly, and he's gonna be a good player for us also.
Yeah, I think that as soon as they came in, they really became Tar Heels and really bought in and stuff. And, they're both going to really help us this year. And I'm really happy that they're here for sure.
Have they stepped up into leadership roles at all, being kind of experienced college players, or they kind of stepped back and just slowly gotten their feet wet before you guys kind of see them emerge as leaders since they're older guys? You guys have such a veteran team with the two of you and Tesser and Lancelotti and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I would say, from the offensive standpoint and defensive, just from a position player standpoint, they definitely have stepped into a little bit of a leadership role just because our team is so young. And we have a bunch of, 18, 19-year-old kids that are super talented, but have never really played any sort of college baseball. Have never played any sort of college baseball. So even a guy like Max that, played 4 years, played in the Cape, has so much experience and so much knowledge to share with them. And both of them, Brett, and, he played in a super regional. So all these kids really look up to them and really respect them.
Cool. Thank you.
Eric, go ahead.
Austin and Danny, I wanted to ask you guys a question. Even though your year was shortened, you guys did have a lot of players that returned this year. And how does that help you guys on the field?
I would say that, I mean, we have a lot of people who on this team, they've either, whether it's been they've been to Omaha or played in super regionals and stuff. I think just having a lot of kids who have been in that position, they know it's gonna happen, and like how the season's gonna go. There's gonna be a lot of ups and downs either way, but I think just having those people will help our freshmen a lot. Like if they go through a rough patch.
RL?
Coach Forbes, how do you see the weekend pitching rotation playing out, and who do you see in the role of closer this year?
You know, it's probably not what a lot of people expected because we moved Lovey to the rotation. Austin Love's going to pitch on Friday night for us. Max Carlson, a freshman from Minnesota, is going to pitch on Saturday. And I've got to talk to Coach Gaines. I believe Max Alba, who had redshirted because of Tommy John, will start for us on Sunday. So that allows Joey Lancelotti to be back in the bullpen for us. He had a hip labrum surgery in the fall, and he's coming back. So he's not quite ready to start, but he's going to be ready to come out of the bullpen. So that would be the three guys that we're going to roll out there opening weekend. And then in the bullpen, that's where we're excited. We feel like we could kind of have a couple guys emerge like we did in 2008. We started 2008 season really unsure, and Colin Bates and Brian Moran definitely came from nowhere for everybody else, but they were good in the preseason. So two guys that have stuck out in these in the preseason for us besides Lancelotti have been right-hander Nick Pry and left-hander Sean Rapp. Both of them have been really good for us, and I think they're both back-end potential guys.
RL, I think you're still mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, do you see Joyce getting a lot of at-bats this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Joey's been with the hip. We've had to limit him. So you won't see him having a ton of at-bats early, but he has been taking BP. He's had a couple of bats in scrimmages. So the main thing for us was just to get Joey ready on the mound. Joey's the type of kid that can just get in the box without much BP and be good. But he will definitely help us in the DH role. It may not be early, it may not be the first 6 games, maybe more of a pitch hitter early, but he will have an impact with us with the bat. But we're hoping he has his best year he's had on the mound for us, because he's fought that hip for 2.5 years, and it was just time to get it better. And his delivery is already better. He's able to get more extension, which obviously helps with his recovery for his arm.
And for Austin, was a starting role something that you saw? I mean, what was your role in high school? Is this any different than what you've done before?
Yeah, I mean, I was a starter in high school, and then once I got here, redshirted, and then put in the bullpen after that. But I mean, I've always wanted to start. Obviously, that's what, if you come to Carolina, you want to be the Friday guy. That's what everybody dreams of. But whenever I went to the Cape, I started, I think, 5 games up there, four games up there. So, I mean, I have a little bit of experience, so I think I'll be fine with it.
You're on mute again.
Well, sorry about that. What about your pitch selection? Obviously, that's going to be maybe a little different in a starting role than in a relief role.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like I said earlier, I'm going to just try and attack more strikes, just try and get guys out instead of striking them out more out of the bullpen. There's guys on bases, so you're more worried about not letting them score than just getting the outs.